welcome everyone. Thanks very much for coming to our panel, and thanks in advance to our panelists who will introduce themselves in a second. So today's session is about the no and low alc spirits category, which is pretty new. It's fast growing, it's dynamic, there's lots of change going on. And as a result, there's a lot of what you might call hype or interest, depending on your perspective. And that's certainly what we'd like to talk about today. But let's start with some introductions. So I'll kick off. I'm Shilen Patel. I'm one of the founders at Distill Ventures. Distill Ventures is an accelerator that's dedicated to drink startups. We're an independent company, but we are backed by a company called Diageo, which is where we get all our money from. Our mission is really to do this. So we are very, very much about helping founders realize their vision of growing and scaling the future brands of our industry. That's why we get out of bed in the morning, and we are driven and passionate about finding the very best entrepreneurs and founders who have amazing ideas, amazing products, and who need some assistance and help in realizing those dreams, partly through money, but mostly through what we call acceleration support, which is largely about surrounding them with knowledge, expertise, network, enabling them to grow their businesses faster and better than they otherwise would be able to. What people don't necessarily know is that a quarter of our portfolio is now in no and low alc. So I'm hoping that comes as a surprise to some of the audience. That is how excited we are at Distill Ventures about this category, which we feel is not only about some of the trends that are going on in health and wellness, but also about consumer choice and giving great experiences to consumers. So it's amazing to have the panel here today who, I'm going to let them introduce themselves. So if I pass the clicker over, start off with you, Dash.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. My name's Dash Lilley, and I am one of the founders of Three Spirit. Three Spirit is a functional alcohol-free drinks company. So we use ancient plant knowledge and modern science to create liquids that actually have an effect. We're not just focused on flavor. We really care about how the drinks will make you feel and how they can be used in social occasions. We've got an amazing team of mixed expertise. So we've had our products, our liquids are made by some of the best barmen in the world, also some amazing plant scientists and herbalists. And everything that we do is about alchemy, which is essentially trying to turn one thing into something else, or to try and turn individual things into a finished product that is greater than its individual components. I think what we've tried to do is create a range of drinks that can enhance your night from start to finish. So we're quite proud that we're just about to launch 2 new products, which essentially can take you through your evening from the beginning to the end. Our mission is to really change the way that people socialize and change the way that people can drink and have more options. We are not against alcohol. We are pro-alcohol, but we think that it's about time that we had better choices when we go out and we choose a drink, which shouldn't always be one or the other. So we're trying to blur the lines between alc and non-alc, essentially. Thank you.
Fantastic, thanks, Dash.
Hello, everybody. My name is Raphael, Vollmar, and I'm one of the founders of Siegfried Gin. And as maybe some of you already found out, we don't only do alcohol, but we also do alcohol-free liquids, or the Wonderleaf liquid. But everything started 2014 when my best friend Gerald and I had the crazy idea to come up with our own gin brand, like German. By now it's a little bit boring, the story, I'd say, because we are not alone anymore. But back in the days, we thought, okay, let's have our own gin brand. We started off packing our first bottles and got quite successful, actually. And we are known as the funny guys. And in 2016, on April Fool's Day, 1st of April, we posted this one on Facebook. And for the first 2 or 3 orders we received, we thought, okay, haha, yeah, that was a joke. But there were actually more than these 2 or 3 orders. There were a significant amount, and we said, damn it, we should stop laughing right now and start thinking about what's happening in the industry. And then we put it aside because it was in 2016, after our first real business year. We were totally stuck in the gym business. But the concept was ready. And then my wife got pregnant again, and she said, everything is good, everything is fine, but I'm going to miss gin tonic a lot. And then we said, okay, we have to do something. And we came up with Siegfried Wonderleaf, which is actually also doing pretty well right now. And yeah, and as Dash already said, we are also not against alcohol. How could we? We are totally pro-alcohol, but we are also pro-choice. And it's not that we have invented the wheel again, but we listen to consumers. And it's the use of social media and using it as a back channel to get information from the market, from outside, from the consumers. We understand that it is time now. It's time to go this way and to do something like that. And maybe we're going to be sold in the UK soon.
I think that was a pitch, Tom.
That was a tiny little pitch.
Hi everyone, I'm Tom Elliot. Sure, anytime. I'm Tom Elliot, part of this team called the Future Brands team at Sainsbury's, which for those of you who don't know is the second largest supermarket chain in the UK. The team that I represent, the Future Brands team, came about last year in order to really capitalise on the growth that we're seeing in the market amongst small, disruptive, challenger brands, and we're trying to kind of be ahead of the curve on that. The aim of the team is quite simple. So we find the best emerging talent, we then help the brands to grow, and then ultimately we try and win by differentiating our stores and bringing new customers. So very, very simple. In some of the brands in Non-Alc specifically that we've worked with in the last year, these are three particular champions, and the results have been amazing. So it's a category where we feel is massively growing, where we want to be ahead of the curve, and it's really exciting. So
brilliant, thank you. So hi, I'm Lucy from a company called Tastemakers based in London. Here I am with my business partner, who's also called Lucy, so we're kind of known as the two Lucys, and we do product development and innovation for businesses who want to turn their ideas into reality. So we've worked with lots of startup entrepreneurs in the drinks world, but we've also worked with some of the big corporations as well in food, so everything in between, and we're just really into great food and great drink. And I guess for us, we got involved in this sector probably 2 years ago when we could see that there was an opportunity, really a blank sheet of paper, to develop some great tasting products. And I think for me, it still is a blank sheet of paper. So I know I'm sat here with obviously 2 brands now, and I can see some of the audience as well, but there's just so much opportunity to develop more and more great products. And for someone who loves to drink, I also love not to drink. So a bit like what these guys are saying, it's all about choice.
Thanks very much, Lucy. So let's get things started, and we'll cover a bunch of topics, and then, as I said, hand it over to the audience. So this is a new category. I think, as everyone's talked about, there's a lot of interest, a lot of new launches. So I think, as you guys know, DV kicks the tires on a fairly large number of companies every year. I think we've counted up to 100 new launches just in no and low alc spirits alone in Europe this year, and we're not even at the end of this year. Lots of press coverage, lots of consumer interest, and there's been some success. People will be familiar with Seedlip, obviously, and we've got 2 founders who can talk a little bit about their success in a second. But I think, as the audience have said, as the panel have said, it's a forming category. And one of the things that strikes me that I'd like to ask you all about is the importance of liquid and product and consumer experience, because it strikes me that if the first experience as people try these liquids isn't great, then is the category here to stay, or is it a flash in a pan, I guess, is the question. So, Lucy, I was going to start with you, actually, if it's okay. You've had this amazing experience at Innocent, soft drinks, big companies, alc, non-alc. Tell us a little bit about what you've discovered about the dangers and pitfalls of making liquids in this space. How do you know when things are good enough?
Yes, I think the first thing to say is often consumers are quite skeptical when they see these products, because they're thinking, why should I pay this amount of money for something that doesn't have any alcohol in it? So I guess the most important thing is that as soon as you taste the drink, you just want to be really impressed with the liquid itself. And so we've tasted lots and lots of products over the last couple of years. And I think for me, often what we find is that the challenge is to get a drink that genuinely has some kind of longevity in the mouth. So often what happens is we taste something, it's got an immediate flavour hit, and then it just disappears. And I think when you're looking for an experience in a bar, something that you can really celebrate, and often something that's mixed with a mixer, you really do need something that's gonna last long. I guess the other thing, one of the pitfalls, is the visual appearance. And I know that's really, really challenging, and the development process is to make sure that the recipe actually looks fantastic in the bottle.
Yeah. And obviously, without alcohol as the preservative, tell us a little bit about, you know, how these products are made, and in terms of like, how do we, because people keep spirits bottles for weeks, sometimes months. Tell us a little bit about the difficulties there in terms of preservation.
So I guess it's an evolving process really, and we're learning all of the time. But as you can imagine, with an alcohol drink, you've got alcohol already in the liquid that's going to stabilise it. And as Shilen says, it can sit on a dusty shelf for many years, in fact, and nothing can go wrong. When you remove the alcohol, or you don't put any alcohol in at all, you've got a liquid that can be quite unstable. And so from a visual perspective, sometimes that means it can go quite murky, but also from a food safety perspective, it means that you can suddenly end up with a fermented drink. So you really have to look at lots of different components in the drink, from the sugar content to the water activity to the hygiene of a facility. And certainly in the UK at the moment, there just aren't that many great manufacturers who are experts in this field. So we really are learning all of the time. And that's certainly one of the areas that will take time to develop as your drink develops.
Yeah. Dash, if we could turn to you, Three Spirits, quite different, I think, from where we've seen a lot of those launches, which have tried to take an existing spirits category like rum or gin and effectively mimic or analogue it. You've taken a very, very different approach at your company. Do you want to talk a little bit about why you did that? Why did you involve such talent from the bar industry, for instance?
Sure. Well, I think we've obviously seen some market leaders like Seedlip create this amazing category. And I think one of the major realizations for me or for us was the potential limitations that you might have distilling liquid when there's no alcohol involved. Because, you know, not only does that have a massive knock-on effect to stability, but also mouthfeel, which is everything. You know, that's the magic of alcohol, is the way that it carries flavor, the way that it impacts your palate, the way that it makes you go, you know, bang, explosion of stimulation, which is sometimes not desirable. You know, the first time you might try a strong liquor when you're young is quite an experience, but you learn to appreciate it. You learn to really love the complexity. And so what we tried to do was think of the freedom that we would have if we weren't to just force ourselves to distill liquids. So we opened up the doors to using a huge number of amazing ingredients, ingredients that can do things to your palate that an ordinary, you know, alcohol-free liquid might not be able to do. And so I think it's about, you know, being as creative and as experimental as possible. And we found that it was a major challenge to get some of the ingredients that we really wanted to use to work for us in a liquid. But also, you know, it's an amazing journey being able to test and try and experiment with how you pull flavor out of raw material. And so there's loads of different ways to do that. And I think we talk a lot about distillation, but there's also the magic of extraction, which you know, is massive for food and drink as a whole. And so we've learned a lot and explored how to extract desirable flavors and compounds out of raw material. And we use lots of different methods to do that in order to get the desired effect into our bottle. So I think the main point for us is we focus, the beginning of the journey is how to create that bang when you first try the liquid.
Yeah.
And that often means that we might create polarizing liquids, which I feel strongly is that in a similar way to alcohol, I think alcohol, you have to develop your taste for it over time. It's embedded in our culture. So it's acceptable. We learn from our parents or from our friends or from advertising of how to drink, essentially. And with non-alc, we kind of got to relearn that process. And so I feel quite proud that we can be polarizing. And, you know, I think that's a core of what we try and do when we create liquids.
Right, thanks, Nash. And then you showed us your new range, and you're talking about taking people through the night. And I think one of the bits that also gets forgotten often is alcohol is really there as a social lubricant, and it's the act of connecting as human beings. So tell us a little bit about why you've chosen to take that approach of having the three liquids that could be used and appropriate to various different moments through a socializing evening.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I think, you know, we're well versed in certain drinks for certain occasions. That's why there's such a plethora of choice out there when it comes to alcohol, which is fantastic. You know, there's a time and a place for everything. It depends sometimes on your location, or, you know, the time of night, or the type of establishment that you're in, or the mood that you're in. And so for us, you know, we wanted to create liquids that could make you feel part of the social occasion, your ticket back into the party. If you're choosing not to drink, or you're choosing to drink less, you know, why should that mean that you shouldn't have pleasure? Not just have something that tastes good, but something that can enhance your moment, whatever that moment is. So we really wanted to focus on, you know, a drink that you might begin your evening with. So we've just about to launch a product called Livener, which is full of natural stimulants and amazing ingredients from the Amazon and from Siberia. And it's a fun, fruity, exotic drink that goes really well in kind of popular cocktails like a spritz or a tonic serve or a spicy margarita. So these are kind of drinks that you might start your evening with, perk you up, get you in the mood. You just finished a long day at work and you want to, you know, be on good form to host a dinner party or something. And then, you know, there's also drinks that you want to be able to drink quite a lot of, complement a meal. So I think we have a product that is quite bitter and a nice flavor profile to promote appetite. And then we've got a product called Nightcap, which is, you know, it's full of really amazing, quite powerful, soothing botanicals that essentially can relax the body and the mind. And I think everyone's been in that situation where you just want to drink to kind of settle down. It might not be that you want to be the center of the party, but you want something that can, you know, bring you back down, help you end your night. You've had a good time.
Yeah.
It's time to bring it back down to earth.
Yeah. Tom, you showed us a few of the examples of some of the brands that you guys have chosen to list. And as a retailer, you know, maybe there's often a balancing act between when is a trend big enough and interesting enough for you guys to get interested. So could you talk a little bit about why Sainsbury's has chosen to get, you know, this involved in this category?
Sure. So I think on a macro and micro level, Non-Alc really ticks a lot of boxes for a big retailer. So on a macro level, you know, health and well-being boom that we're witnessing at the moment, as well as, you know, things around premiumization or provenance, sustainability. Non-Alc has a really able role to play in supporting kind of those macro kind of trends that we're seeing across every single category in a supermarket. On a micro level, what really excites me about this category is this kind of incrementality to the whole category. So it's not just bringing in another gin brand, which is going to trade the volume more thinly across another brand or another, you know, a slightly different marketing proposition. Actually, this is bringing a new customer into our store, a new demographic, and catering for a new mission, which is really exciting and encouraging. I guess the watch out is with all that and as you alluded to earlier, Shilen, that it needs world-class liquids in order to kind of cement the category and push it in the right direction. I'm definitely seeing the volume of brands coming through is extremely thick and fast. And so we have to be really, really careful as retailers that we're picking the right brands that are going to play into the right trends with a world-class liquid, because otherwise, that if you're trying to bring in and win a new customer in for the first time they've ever witnessed a product like that, they try it for the first time, they think I don't understand how to use this, or I don't understand what the flavour's going off or the serve, then you could easily just wipe out the kind of the value in the category from the start. So from a macro, micro perspective, really, really exciting. I think that the challenge is picking the right brands and making sure that the liquids are world-class.
Raphael, Tom's talked about incrementality and the importance of that to him as a retailer. You guys have a very unique perspective on this category, I always think, because you came from the world of alcohol and, as you've showed, came to the world of non-alc a bit later. So you have this quite unique perspective of straddling both worlds. Tell us a little bit about what you've learned about being a producer, unlike most of the non-alc producers who only make non-alc. Tell us a little bit about what you've learned about producing both. And I'm really interested in your view of European market, because obviously I think a lot of this has been born out of the UK, Seedlip, I think, because it led the trend. Is it as important in Europe? Are you seeing as much growth as you would have hoped in Europe?
So the idea, or the starting to look into non-alc was not only born by the April Fool's joke, but also by the reaction of consumers, because there's not everybody, and if you look around here, you have the impression that everybody drinks alcohol. But the world is not only about drinking alcohol. There is a significant amount of people out there who confronted us with the saying that no, I never drink any hard alcohol, any strong liquors and stuff. I don't do. There's people who say, I'm at this point in time not allowed. At this point in time, I'm not willing. And very, very many other reactions we received besides that, oh, of course I try your gin and tonic. When you run through the world and you open your eyes and you see that like it was till I think 5 or 4 years ago, there was no choice for consumers. There simply was no choice. If you go to a restaurant or a bar, when we're talking about on-trade, then there was no choice. You were doomed to still water, which is great, by the way, to still water, Coca-Cola, or some other brands. But it's always lemonade or fruit juices, and this is actually super boring. Like even right now, looking back, it seems why it's so super boring. So there's not much happening, and that was that's a real trend. And without having numbers, I think you have the figures about the health trends and stuff, but we see it in our everyday lives that people are curious about eating less meat. They care about what they consume in all different ways, and even though we are alcohol producers and we really like to be, and there is when taking care of what you use and about the amounts, but still there are very many occasions during the day, and let's speak about Germany. I know there's other European countries where drinking during daytime is more in trend, but in Germany there's you're restricted to the time of Thursday night till Saturday night. Maybe that's the time frame for alcohol, but there's like all the other days lunch meetings, business lunch meetings.
I'm quite interested by all the new occasions that we can reinvent now. that have
Exactly.
used to drink alcohol on but no longer do.
Exactly, and
It's all
there's-
back in play, right?
There's super many occasions, at least in our cultural area, where daytime drinking, everybody knows that it's big fun or can be big fun, but usually you don't do.
Okay,
And this is where we are heading.
great. So that's the warm up. Let's tackle the really hairy question. Overpriced or good value? You guys especially will have been at the front line of hearing your consumers either tell you that this is fantastic and you've been waiting for it and the price is right. I'm sure you've also had messages of why should I pay this price? Tom, you've really been at the front line of that, so I'm really interested in your perspective on this. I guess this is the big issue, right? When you, as consumers take the element away that we all call alcohol from these amazing drinks, and you get these questions of why should I pay the price? So, Tom, I'm actually going to start at you because you really are at the sharp end. What have you guys experienced at Sainsbury's about what consumers think about the pricing of these products? How do they judge whether something's worth the money? How do you guys judge whether products should be priced where they are?
Yeah, so I think it's a really hard one, and it's something that we don't fully know at the moment. You know, we are still in that experimentation phase where we don't know how low, how high we can push this category, and we're still testing out the elasticity across all the different price points that we have. I think the instant challenge when a brand pitches to a buyer in a retailer and they say, you know, this liquid is more expensive to make than a spirit. We obviously produce our own private label, and we know exactly the breakdown of the fact that 80% of the cost price is duty. And so I think there's a lot of education that needs to happen amongst the brands and educating the retailers and also the end customer about, well, why is it expensive to make this liquid, and what's the reason for the price? Because I think every brand has a different story, and I think that makes it very complicated to understand. I mean, my view on is it overpriced or fair value is that we're still experimenting. I believe that there is definitely scope to have a range of different price points, catering for a wide variety of budgets. However, there needs to be kind of careful balance with either side of the spectrum. So you don't want to price yourself too high that you're going to alienate people from the outset before they've even entered the category, because we know that barrier to entry is quite high when you're spending 28 quid on a random liquid that you've never tried before. Might be great, but if it's not, it's quite a big investment to make, a couple of times a year or whatever it is. And on the other side of the spectrum, pricing too low, is that just wiping value out of the category for both the brand, the retailer, when actually customers can be quite price insensitive if it's a really great liquid and it's a new occasion that they are experiencing. So I think pricing is a really delicate one.
Yeah.
To get right. It's a fine balance, but we're all working it out together.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a proper answer on this.
Yeah. Raphael, having a gin and a non-alc, has that helped or has it hindered? How's that worked?
For us, it was actually it was pretty easy because we our gin is filled in 0.5 liter bottles and they retail in Germany for $29.90. And when we do some math now, and there's lots of alcohol pros here, we know that the alcohol itself is not that pricey, at least not in gin. It's not agency. So when we're really, really generous now, and we'd say with alcohol duty and everything, when we deduct, let's say, €6, which is by far too much, alcohol bond costs in our product at least. When we deduce €6 from $29.90, we end up 23 something. So our retail price for Siegfried Wonderleaf is €18.90 because we knew exactly that the discussion will come. And we said, okay, we have the trade-off between pricing it too high and we try to be a very fair company and very transparent with all the prices, and we don't overshoot in prices ever. So it was clear for us that we have to end up somewhere below our Siegfried gin price, deducting alcohol costs, somewhere there, but still not go too low in order to still show the consumers and the people who want to enter this, that this is it's not simply flavored water. It is. There's so much technology in there, and there's so much trial and error, and so many more costs involved, because the handling, as it was just mentioned before, the handling is so by far more delicate than the handling of the spirit. But still, it was pretty easy for us to know, because we use the same size bottle, we use the same brand name, there's everything. So the math was easy for us.
So Dash, Raphael obviously had the gin to give him a price point, or his consumers a price point to work off. And as he said, there's a lot of innovation and technology that goes into the making of the liquids. You, as you've rightly talked about, very, very different liquids made in a very different way. I know you focused a lot on mouthfeel. How have you found pricing that, getting consumers to understand, when you don't have a reference point like Raphael has for gin? How have you found that? How has that worked? What have you learned?
We've learned a lot.
What can you tell us?
Yes, so, I find it a fascinating question, and it's a constant issue that we have to respond to, duty. And I think what we found is that I think people have a perception of cost of distillation, which carries over and helps potential price points of distilled liquids, which is one thing. And then, of course, there's the duty element, which Raphael's explained well. I think for us, we tried to really hit home and explain to the consumer or to our customer, maybe it's an on-trade customer, and they're very different situations when you're talking to a consumer versus the trade. But what we do is we pour, we do have a good margin to play with, but we use that to put as much quality and value into the liquid. So my argument is often, we put more in. We use that margin to put more into the product. We don't just try and make a quick buck. That's the last thing that we do. And so we find it useful that we can play with a price point that is more common with a premium spirit, because it allows us to make the best possible product. And, I'm not going to lie that a couple of years ago, it looked like maybe there's an opportunity here to enter the market and just undercut what's already out there. Because there's this big never-ending conversation about price. But I think that would be kind of underestimating the passion and curiosity of the consumer. I think consumers want amazing products. They want to discover new things. And we set ourselves ambitious targets. And in order to do that, we had to really spend money at every step of the process. Of course, it's important that the product looks good, it's packaged well, presented well. The liquid has to be exceptional. Stabilizing these things is not easy. And so I think I can stand up quite confidently and proudly to justify the price. That doesn't mean that it washes with everyone. And I think that we get a hell of a lot of feedback on Facebook. We have a lot of direct-to-consumer customers, which is great because we can talk directly to them. And, you get a lot of conversations just happening virally online. And, a lot of that is like, barking at the price. How can this cost the same as a gin? But then what's interesting is we find that a lot of our customers start answering the question for us, which is beautiful to see.
Amazing.
And so we kind of have, we call them troll hunters, but we have these kind of like mega fans that start explaining for us sometimes the misunderstanding with value in alcohol, and the fact that actually that bottle of gin that you paid £15 for costs £2 to make. How does that make you feel? Whereas the opposite is true of us. You know, it's like, you've got to think about what you're putting in your body. And I think the price conversation is a great way to, you know, think about it in a different way. And I think premium alcohol really care about the quality of the spirit. And I think everyone can agree that, you know, alcohol makes us feel, can make us feel different. There's a good effect and there's a bad effect.
Yeah.
And so we really play on that. And I think it's almost an easier conversation with the trade, because they want something that they can make their money on. They're happy if they've got a product that they can charge at a decent price. So in fact, it's almost an opportunity, a commercial opportunity for them, that rather than charging £3 or £4 for a mocktail, which is kind of fruit juice, they've got interesting liquids of high value to create really interesting serves, put them on menu, maybe make the same money, if not more, than an alcohol serve.
Yeah.
So I think the trade understands we try and work really closely with them to, you know, improve the offering for their consumer.
Yeah.
Because consumers want choice. And I think we're seeing more and more, you know, menus that are being daring and creative and having low and no, which I think, you know, the low category is very interesting. And so I have faith that the value will be understood and come through. There's also customers out there that will never, it's just not for them.
Yeah, sure.
And we accept that.
Okay.
And we try and focus on the customers that understand what we're trying to do.
Okay. Let me bring you in here, Lucy, because this is like sharp-ended for you. You've been on the inside. You've seen various companies making these liquids. So let me ask the really pointed question: how many of them are taking the mick? Are they easy to make? Are some people taking the mick, or are they genuinely hard to make? And if they are hard to make, why are they hard to make?
I'm not going to talk about people taking the mick, but I'm going to talk about how hard they are to make. Because we see lots of entrepreneurs come to us with a recipe that they've made in their kitchen. Okay, lots of herbalists, for example, will come to us with something, you know, a few tinctures here, extracts here. They've showed it to us in a bottle. It kind of tastes a bit weird, but you can sort of see where the ultimate opportunity might lie. And it's really, really hard and takes a long time to go from that point of the process through to a finished product. And I'd sort of break that down into two phases. It's the development of the recipe in the first place, and a lot of that is about sourcing the right raw materials that can come in the right format. And then once you've got those raw materials, combining them in the right way to give you the right taste, the right look, and the right effect. And sometimes what happens is perception is different from reality, and once you mix certain ingredients together, they can actually have a negative effect. So there's a lot of iterations that can take years actually to develop a great tasting liquid. So there's the upfront work. I guess the second thing to mention is the limited knowledge in production. We've got lots of companies making great soft drinks. Soft drinks are made at scale with maximum efficiency, and that's been developed over so many years that everyone understands how that process works, and that's why soft drinks are quite cheap. In this particular area, we're looking at something very different. Some of the techniques that are required to make these styles of products, those manufacturers are quite artisan. They're often made in small batches. They often have to be hand-packed. The lovely labelling has to be hand-applied. And so when you start to add up all of the upfront cost of the actual development and then the production costs, they are significantly more expensive to make.
Yeah.
And I think sort of the last point is to say, I think that obviously will change as time goes on. When you look at any product in such infancy, they're expensive to make, and then as more people make them and the machinery gets more efficient, then hopefully we'll start to see some of the production costs come down when there's more opportunity for packing. So I can only see it from a manufacturing point of view.
Yeah, no, it's really helpful though. Fantastic. Thanks everyone for tackling the difficult question head on. Let's talk a little bit about some of the exciting elements of no and low alc as a space. So, as I think almost everyone has mentioned, a new and emergent category. We often at DV say it's 5 past midnight on day one of this category. no rules have been firmly established, I would argue. And this seems especially true when you think about route to market. I'd like to just dwell on route to market for a second, on the pure basis that these liquids can get sold in places that alcohol can't get sold in. They can get drunk in places that alcohol can't get drunk in, which strikes me as a potentially very interesting start point. So, Dash, I'm going to start with you, largely because your team is a really interesting team. People from our industry, Tats, Meta from the industry of very e-commerce, direct-to-consumer driven, presumably done with real intent, right? So talk to us a little bit about what you've learned about being D2C focused.
Sure. So yeah, that's right. I've got two very interesting co-founders, one of which is my wife, who is well versed in the booze industry. So she is our expert in terms of liquids, brands, bars, barman, which has been amazingly useful. That's why we've been able to work with some of the best barmen in the world to help develop our liquids and give us that kind of authority of product. But Mita, our other co-founder, yeah, she's very much kind of background in direct-to-consumer businesses disrupting existing industries. And so it was very important to us to try and focus massively on D2C, and even to the point where we were able to, start learning a lot about who our potential customer was, who our audience was, before we had a product, before we had a brand, which is very useful. So we were able to experiment and explore what our product should look like, what it should say, what it should try and communicate, and figure out where that sweet spot is. Now, obviously, that de-risks massively bringing a new product to market. You're not going in blind. It also reduces the reliance on needing major retail to pick you up instantly to get the volume. So it's attractive on many levels. It also allows us to find customers far and wide. And one of the most important things for us, I think, is we're very aware of having a slightly weird and wacky and wonderful brand and type of product. It requires more education than most, which is a challenge. It's a strength and a challenge. We're trying to be different. We're trying to disrupt, but we're able to really control the way that we tell our story online and to online customers, from the way that they discover us, from the way that we advertise digitally, from the way that we can send them our product to arrive at their door, their boxing experience. And it's one of the reasons why we've been, slightly cautious around major retailers, that we're aware of that, split-second opportunity that you've got to catch someone's attention on a shelf, especially this early in a development of a trend. And so we're not against retail. I think it's a really important part of our future, but we want to make sure that we can grow our brand in the right way before we feel that a consumer is primed or ready to discover us on a shelf.
Tom, do you want to jump in there? Because I can see the benefits for Three Spirits, but you guys again have sharp end experience. So
yes, I think it can really depend on the brand and your appetite for how fast you want to go. I do think that adoption isn't quicker, and I think you can actually go and work with a big retailer even before you really have got a massive presence in the on-trade. Particularly in non-alc, I think it almost bucks the trend of, first that wisdom that you first establish your brand in the on-trade, and then you go off-trade, and then you go small off-trade, and then big off-trade. We're seeing brands that are kind of coming straight in very early doors, and actually we're seeing real green shoots. I think it can be done. I think one thing that with the DTC stuff, I think we have seen where a brand has spent 3 years developing their kind of DTC presence. This is in other categories, by the way. A good example is meal replacement. So Huel is a brand that we've just launched in Sainsbury's with Future Brands, and in 3 years they got to 40 million, and it's gone into Sainsbury's. It's a pretty alien product, and it's flying. and so they'd almost done all the groundwork to develop the brand and get the visibility known before it went into Sainsbury's. That said, actually, could they have done it faster? Probably. Retailers as well are opening their eyes to working with small, disruptive challenger brands. I mean, we've set up a whole team for that, and the other retailers, the bigger guys, are definitely looking to do stuff because they see that's where all the growth is coming from. Which makes it easier for you guys to kind of come into a player like Sainsbury's and have a reasonable chance of success because we're out there supporting kind of smaller brands.
And again, Raphael, you've been unconventional in both product range, but from what I can see of what you guys have done, you've also been pretty unconventional and bucked the traditional approach that a spirits company would take in route to market. Tell us a bit more about that and what you've learned.
Okay, when we started founding our company, we invested 4,000 euros. And being realistic, you can't play the big game with 4,000 euros. And so we made use of social media. We were forced to, and we let people take part in our journey, part in product creation, part in our first attempts and struggles to come to a finalized product. And that created so much awareness that we actually took a shortcut. I'd say we all would agree on the fact that a regular road to entry would be go pay bartenders to pour your liquid in bars, tell about the product, create awareness, and then hopefully the fun or the spark is taken over by retail when you then go for the larger scale. For us, it was different. So we didn't have one brand ambassador, but we had a few thousand back then because people wanted our product, and they went not only to bars, but they also went to retail and asked for it. And that's the market pull, or to create a market pull, that was really cool for us. It helped to distribute our product on larger scale. And when we started with the non-alc, we already had in our core markets, we had very well established relationships with large retailers in all categories. So when we came up with a new product, it was not easy because we always I just want to get back on that one point that there is people who simply don't get it. This is also true for some retailers, but as well as Dash does, we also do concentrate on people who really understand and see the massively huge potential that's there. But I also want to put some point to all the barkeepers who listen here, that just think about charging a consumer and a severe more money for a better drink than you charge them for a still water or a Coke. That is crazy. No, but the route to market is basically really just a known product. The people, in our case, it's also super easy that they understand the product. They know Siegfried because we wisely chosen our brand name, or we use our Siegfried brand name that is established in alcohol business. We use for a non-alc. Some larger companies would say, "Ooh, huge risk, huge risk." But we said, hey, large potential there, because there is no need for us to explain that the most straightforward thing you do with our liquid is put tonic water, and that's it. So that was a huge facilitator for us to enter the market.
Well, I hope you lot have got questions prepped. If you haven't, now's a good time to think about questions, because we're going to do one last quick fire. I'm going to do this as a quick fire and then open it up to the floor. So I'm going to go down the line, and the question I want you to answer is, looking into your crystal ball, given the experience that you personally have of this category, is the category going to continue to evolve step by step? So will we see it liquids get better and better marginally? Will it improve incrementally? Or are we going to see wholesale disruption, completely different liquids? So tell me whether you believe in evolution or revolution, and then what's your one prediction for the category? What's the most exciting prediction that you have for the category? And I'm going to start with you, Dash.
It's a big question. So I think, if I can be so bold to say, it's going to be a bit of a mix. I think
You sit on that fence.
there's interesting products that I think are going to find their niche in terms of price point, balancing, quality liquid with an opportunity on price. I think that will, obviously, there'll be people that find a lot of success there. Obviously, what we're, banking on is that we can change the way that we look at non-alc in a similar way that I think where the revolution comes is, look what's happening in the meat industry. Look what's happened to tobacco. Look what's happening to combustion engines. Why should that not happen to alcohol? That doesn't mean that meat's not good.
Yep.
That doesn't mean that tobacco doesn't have a place. But I think, technology, creativity, innovation should lead to really interesting disruption within alcohol, which equals interesting alternatives to ethanol.
Yeah.
And that's what we are, super passionate about. That's where we think that the future is. That's where we think the prize is. And we want to be part of that. And that's why I find it so exciting.
Great. Raphael, revolution, evolution.
So what started as a pure revolution, I'd say will develop into an evolution. There's an enhancement in quality. We all learn. We all learn about production. We hope that retail jumps on it large scale. Just kidding. No, but it's really there's so much happening, and this we see ourselves as giving consumers the opportunity to express themselves, and we kind of enable consumers to go for. And what I started with saying that we didn't invent the wheel. Another time it was the consumers pushing us toward.
Yeah.
They demand products like this, and so it's clear sign that it's going to end up in a nice evolution and a huge market.
And Tom, how much is the supermarket aisle going to change? BWS, not an aisle known for radical innovation.
Yeah. Well, something that is really interesting that we've learned in the last year or so is that the people that are buying non-alc in supermarkets, generally speaking, are people who are temporary rejectors or moderators. The people that abstain completely don't even know that this category exists, and they're not even going into store and going down the aisle because they're like, I'm not drinking alcohol or alcohol alternatives. It's just not my bag. The beauty about non-alc is that we can put it in anywhere in store, and there are health benefits to be drinking, non-alc versus, full fat spirits. So my crystal ball prediction is almost that you'll start seeing non-alc in all corners of supermarkets, whether that's in the kind of the allergen section, like free from, where it's free of alcohol. Is it going to be in a kind of health and well-being zone in store where people are shopping by lifestyle choices? So I think I think it's an evolution, and I hope it is, because this is a long-term play and it needs to be a sustainable category that we've all got a part in playing into. But I do feel that it will change the way in which we merchandise and that kind of thing.
Yeah, Lucy, from a liquid perspective, evolution, revolution, what are your
really
hopes?
Quickly, I think for me, in the world of hospitality, it's revolution. I think there's just so much experimentation, and that's exciting. I think in the retail world, it will be evolution, because I think that many brands will fail because they're either not good enough from a liquid perspective, or they're too hard to produce from a manufacturing perspective. And therefore, I think it's going to take time to get, really good quality brands out there in retail. So
Great.
it's a mixed bag.
Okay. And on that note, let's turn it over to the floor. So if you could stick your hand up if you've got a question. If you want to direct it to a specific member of the panel, please do so. If you want to just direct it to the panel in general, one or more of us will pick it up.
So right now we're seeing a variety of different, I guess, descriptions of what people are calling this. Non-alcoholic spirit, spiritless spirit. We have obviously a big thing going on in the States right now with Juul vaping tobaccos.
Yeah.
Appealing to young kids. So we have a category that you're saying could be merchandised through a store. It's sort of in a guise that it can be a spirit occasion in which you imbibe this. And I'm just, when does a regulatory kick in? Here we go.
So it sounds like the question's about the regulatory environment.
Yes.
What do we call these things?
Right. No,
what are the watch-outs?
Yeah,
what are the pitfalls?
no label
right?
approvals, no
Sure.
liquid approval, no real assessment of actually
Sure. Well,
what's
look,
been
why
going
don't
on.
we turn that
other
over, like initially to you guys, because you guys have been through this.
Yeah. The most straightforward thing for our liquid is that people call it the non-alcoholic gin, which is legally not correct because gin needs to have, in Europe at least, 37.5% alcohol inside. So so we were struggling with what is this? Yeah? What is it? Yeah? It's definitely not herbal water. We were not allowed to call it distillate. This is the fun part because we are just creating a new category, and we are waiting, at least in Europe, for Brussels to tell us what this is supposed to be. And but I can fully understand your point saying that directly at kids and stuff. But my personal answer is oftentimes we create liquids where which you use to make drinks out of that kids don't like, and this differentiates us from the stuff that was in the market before, because using our Siegfried Wonderleaf doesn't end up in a lemonade that kids like. So I tried with my kids, of course, at least with my older son, and he was pretty happy that he was allowed to try the liquid, but he was saying, this is so bitter and I don't like it. I said, strike, yes, that's what we're aiming for, drinks for grown-ups, and because kids simply don't like. From a dry alcoholic perspective, we also talk to people like that. There, of course, you can say that that's a little dangerous because we were told that it's not the amount of alcohol inside the drink, but sometimes also it's the triggering moment where you experience something or the brain relates to drinking alcohol again. But still, the bottling and our products clear liquid, it looks like spirit. It's there.
It strikes me that this is about us taking quite proactive responsibility, given that we're all saying that I think what we'd like to do is make these liquids for adults to consume on adult socializing occasions. So,
exactly.
Dash, Tom, Lucy, anything to add on
I think it's a really interesting one and something that we've grappled with a lot, because you're right, like as you said earlier, Shilen, we have the opportunity, being non-alc, to play in different areas where alcohol cannot.
Yeah.
Whether that's a coffee shop or a yoga center, etc. But it's really important to us to also try and use the rituals of alcohol as best as we can to educate a consumer how to use our product, and therefore it's an age-old conundrum of where do you want to be placed on a shelf? Is it better to be in a well-being area versus the hard liquor section? And for us, we want to be a product that deserves a bit of respect, just like alcohol does. And again, it comes down to like culture. We learn to respect alcohol because it can bite us, and everyone experiences that at some point, and you learn your tolerance. With non-alc, where do you begin? And for us, being a functional product, which wants to be able to allow the user to feel something, pleasure, we've got to be very careful. And essentially, I think the best way to try and manage that is to learn and pull from some of the messaging that exists in alcohol, like drink responsibly, and take this product seriously. It's not a soft drink, but it's a big question, and I don't know the answer yet of where to be exactly.
Do we have time for one more?
Hi everyone, I'm Leah, working for the innovation department of Jägermeister, and thank you all very much for all your insights. I have a question about the hypothesis you guys had about your target audience. I mean, you guys, two of you have a D2C approach, so you have very good data, or Sainsbury, you have good data. Who buys these kind of products? I mean, just my initial gut feeling would be that it is the health conscious millennial, everyone who is, as you mentioned, like turning to eating less meat, turning to a healthier lifestyle. But is that actually the case, or do you have who's the customer?
Who wants to jump in with some stats? I've got some, but you go first, Tom.
So yeah, you're right. It's the health conscious person on that occasion. It's not someone that is health conscious all the time, but it's someone who's generally drinking less in the week or temporarily rejecting. That is generally the customer at the moment. What's quite interesting is that the more brands that play in this space, the more the market is being segmented, just as it evolves. So Seedlip, for instance, generally the customer that buys Seedlip at the £26 price point is someone who's a bit more affluent, who is more price insensitive, is concerned about nature and nutrition, whereas another brand that is priced slightly lower might have a different stance. So I think as it evolves, we're hoping that it will get segmented into catering for different customers, and it won't just be that kind of, well, it's near alcohol in a supermarket, so it's generally people that have decided that they're actually going to temporarily reject. We want the abstainers, we want the people that are religious and decide that they don't want to drink alcohol. We want those people into the category as well. So it's evolving quite quickly, but they are as you expect them to be at this stage whilst it's small. That's what we're finding.
Raphael, Dash, any insights you want to share?
I'd say, even though we are in the same category, it's totally different because our product doesn't have a real function besides tasting great. Maybe I answer who's not buying it. Yeah, it's the people who want to have a gin. Yeah, they don't buy our product. Hopefully they don't, because it's the two groups are mutually exclusive. Like if you on a broader scale, but and we learned that at least we won't re-educate, and that's also one other point we don't want to make. There's other brands out in the market who want to change behavior in total. We don't want. We just want to give an extra facet. We want to open up great taste worlds to people who are excluded from that just because of the other products go with alcohol. So, but I absolutely admit that there is the large group of female health conscious. There's also data about that the recent alcohol legal generation kind of rejects alcohol on a large scale. So the future is buying this.
Cool. So I guess I'll just do a quick summary of, I think, some of the stuff that I've heard, which is, I guess we're all biased and we're hoping it's here to stay as a category, but it sounds like almost everyone agrees product quality and just as much product experience. So Raphael, you talked about people taking care about the drinks. You've talked, Dash, about the functional benefits. People really putting as much into these drinks as possible. Sounds like it's sounds like there's no shortcuts. Tom, Lucy, these aren't easy to make or easy to sell. It's a lot of education. I think everyone's talked a lot about the importance of education. But I think one of the exciting things is hopefully you've heard today that there's lots of opportunities for disruption too. So let me end by firstly thanking the panel. Thank you, Dash. Thank you, Raphael. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Lucy. Really appreciate you coming and sharing your insights with the audience. And thank you very much, the audience, for listening and participating.
Thank you.